Hi, everyone, and welcome back to Zero Shot, the Zero Hype AI and Business podcast. I'm James Gauci, and this is my co-host, Llew Jury. Llew,
hey,
Happy New Year, mate.
Happy New Year, James, and Happy New Year, everybody. How good is it to be back?
Well, we've had a lot of AI-related news even over Christmas. I feel like
We did.
I feel like it doesn't stop turning, and you can't get away from it even when you want to.
What was your number one AI news story over the break, James?
All I know is Claude Code upped my quota for free, but in the week between Christmas and New Year's, I was vibe coding myself into a hole. It was unreal.
Those rabbit holes, mate. I tell you, well, mine was Manus getting bought by Meta. And I think they did it just before the end of the year. And wow, like what a pickup, because I've been using Manus a lot and it's probably one of the true agentic AIs. But anyway, how good to be back. Let's get cracking. There's a huge show ahead. So welcome back to all the listeners.
And this episode is brought to you with thanks to promptcowboy.ai, the fastest way to turn everyday business tasks into automated workflows. If you've ever wished you had a digital ranch hand doing the repetitive work for you, Prompt Cowboy delivers. From AI prompts to full automations, it wrangles the hard stuff so you can focus on what matters. Head to promptcowboy.ai and get your business riding smoother than ever.
Wow. Thanks to Matt and Henry from Prompt Cowboy. How good. Good to have them back on board and, back in the saddle, as they say.
We didn't scare them off after episode 1. Great stuff.
No, that's it. How good. No, great lads. So I suppose this is really, we're diving into what does 2026 hold, and we're going to reflect really quickly on 2025. And let's get maybe 1 or 2 points from 2025, James, from yourself. We did a bit of a summary at the end of last year about what we thought the year was, but what was the top thing that stood out to you in 2025 that may or may not exist in 2026?
As somebody who's spent a really long time now in software teams, I've never seen the marginal cost of custom software plummet so quickly in the advent of a new technology, and it made me think of the way that the advertising industry went in the 90s and the thousands and the tens, where we went from these kind of mass market billboards, TV ads, audiences of hundreds of thousands or millions. And all of a sudden we saw, ad targeting from Facebook and ad targeting from Google, and that became the new normal and the most performant way of getting things done, right down to the point where we could target people individually, rightly or wrongly. And I think we're going to see that now as a result of a lot of the things that happened in 2025, tools like Claude Code and all of the agent harnesses that came out that take the promise of AI and then put it in a really nicely structured environment to be able to do a particular job. I think that's definitely going to be the way forward this year. And on reflection, I think we'll remember 2025 as the year that software engineering started to eat itself, for better or for worse. Yeah, how about you, Llew?
Well, look, I think being from the sort of the commercial space and the business space, I was reflecting on this and it was just one word, dabble. I think 2025 was the year of the dabble. And I frame that by dabbling in many different use cases, many, people testing different things within their organizations, many different GPTs. I know that lots of my clients, one's on Grok and then he's also on Copilot and then another client, she's on, Claude and Perplexity and all of this. It was a real dabbling year, and let's sort of a bit of spray and pray. Let's spray it out there and see what happens. And I think that's going to change this year. I think what's going to happen is there's a refinement of your favorite LLM, your favorite GPT, and that's going to then inform what you're talking about, James, which is the agentic AI component. And I think by the end of the year, getting the crystal ball out, we're going to see, agentic AI is going to be really talked about throughout this year on this podcast.
I think you're 100% right. We're moving from that doubling phase as a kind of a mass business market into a little bit more structured and ROI focused ways of doing things. I think we as a business community fell a little bit out of love with AI, and in a good way, if that makes sense. The shine started to wear off. We started to see how it was actually being rolled out, and we started to realize that, we actually don't know how that's performing or how that's working underneath the surface. And I think that's definitely something that we'll begin to focus on in 2026 for sure.
Yeah. And so the ROI case comes up there, right? And it's one of our first topics today is what did we see from a real ROI? And where did we see it? Was it in monetary value? Was it in time value, giving it back to people, and even job and upskilling value? Where did you see it, James?
It's for me, and I think I paid some service to this idea in our last episode where I was talking about how you have to have an existing process and put AI as a tool within the context of that process before you understand what kind of impact it's going to make anyway. You have to have the current state, you have to have an idea of what the future state might be and an expected return. And those were quite small use cases and didn't always require the biggest, best AI. So, for example, we were producing a pretty simple RAG system for like retrieval augmented generation. It's kind of like it uses AI as the librarian. It wanders away and it looks through all of the books and the documents and things and brings back, oh, is this what you wanted? And a few different options. And so we put that into a customer service context. And all of a sudden we saved $80,000 a year from then on just by having quicker access to the right kinds of information instead of over relying on people's memory, which happens a lot. And that's a really simple use case and didn't require AI to do anything other than play a librarian's role in a small software business to improve their customer service and give measurable returns. So, yeah, I think the combination of structures and workflows and using AI as deliberate tools, those were the places where we got the most value out of AI in our experience anyway. How about you, Luke?
Yeah, mate. Very similar, and there's a sort of a use case very quickly which I want to highlight, which is voice AI. And one of my clients was an early adopter of voice AI using the 11 Labs platform, and we managed to go into their call center, and they had 10 or so staff in there. One of the best things for me was not only saving that client money by offering, if you press 1, you get to talk to the AI, and actually, a hot tip there is actually say that it's at a digital assistant, right? And so people then are used to that. But also you could still talk to the call center if you wanted to. But one of those call center people, he actually came over and now works with me when I go and see that client as the AI associate in the business. He's actually reskilled and retrained. So that has happened within 6 months. You're putting in a tool that is creating great efficiency, great price efficiency as well, and cost reduction. And, you're actually reskilling and training people in a whole new world that 6 months before that, they hadn't even thought about and contemplated. So look, there's great successes. ROI comes in many forms and functions. That's the key message.
So now we've discussed some of the ways that there was ROI in 2025 from AI in businesses and organizations. But one of the big headlines from 2025 was AI being the money pit. There was a lot of money spent on AI in search of value, but not always getting measurable value back. What's your experience been of that?
It's like a leading question because I get so fired up on this one. You can see the passion welling up. I think, look, you go back a step, AI and agents and GPTs, which are the AI that everybody uses. I mean, ChatGPT has 800 million weekly active users, nearly, 1/10 of the entire population of the world. And then that's sort of the personal business to consumer side. In the enterprise space and in the small business, the medium business, Microsoft have got it stitched up because of their authentication layer, because of their Active Directory and things like that goes into managing your level of login in the organization is
Microsoft has a legendary moat, doesn't it?
They have a brilliant moat. And what they did was, to answer your question, was basically turn on a $50 a month activation, which you had to prepay for whole years. You're in the pond for $600, right? And you've spent that up front as a pre-commitment. So you can't even dabble for, using Copilot, which is their product, for, 3 to 4 months and then pivot to something else that might be better suited to your team because you're a different team within the organization. So my winner that was probably overpriced and too expensive and probably wasn't used enough by many organizations was Copilot. One thing that we did when we saw this coming was actually try and build teams using Microsoft Teams. Although I love Slack, I still go in and build teams. We built an AI champions Teams channel and group. And what we did was gave teaching and coaching and help on Microsoft Copilot and shared a lot of data and a lot of information, a lot of videos, tutorials, so that people got some value from it because the expensive part comes from the board going, how much are we blowing per month on these Copilots? And they always ask us, don't they, James, how many people are using it? And you can go into Copilot and you can actually, as an admin, go, well, Llew Jury is actually not using it all down in marketing, so this is not good. You knock on the door, Lou, what are you using? Oh, I'm just still using my own chat GPT. And it's brilliant, things like that. So that's what we saw a lot of. Now, a little anecdote there, Copilot, Microsoft have now reduced that down to about 28 US, roughly $30. They've seen the writing on the wall and they've had to reframe their whole go-to-market. And that's only in 12 months. And then, James, do you want to talk about their whole relationship with OpenAI and how it's just sort of, it's actually changing now to Claude, like they're moving across to Anthropic, aren't they?
Look, it's Silicon Valley politics. It's in constant flux. Microsoft is a massive investor in OpenAI.
One of the first, 2019, wasn't it? They put $1 billion in.
That's it. And even before then, they'd put in $100 million, probably 2 or 3 years before then. So they have a really long-standing relationship, and I think Microsoft played the game perfectly against their competitor/ally, where they seized an absolute ton of value out of the relationship, and now they've acted, as they were always going to, as a big player, and they have optionality. They can give their server farm compute to whomever they wish, provided that they haven't already committed it. And so it's not surprising to see some of those winds shifting. And along the same vein, we've seen Apple recently enter serious talks with Google to power the next Siri using their Gemini models.
Yeah.
That's going to be a $4 billion plus US deal to access, 30% of the smartphone market, 40% of the smartphone market globally. Not to mention all of the personal computing devices like laptops and Apple TVs and all the rest of it. So yeah.
Where do you think Microsoft is going to go in terms of, where do you think Copilot's going to end up? Because they're sort of putting some propaganda out at the moment. I shared this morning even about they've got all these new features. It's all wonderful, and we've got choice. And in Copilot Studio, which is actually not too bad, Copilot Studio isn't too bad if you can build on top of good data lakes and things like that. But where's it going to go? Where is this going to end up? I mean, are we talking about, like we were talking before the pod, about Google are going to win? We just know, and you and I have watched it over the years, that deep pockets, don't build anything against them. Google often win. And I saw that dozens of times with Craig, my co-founder at Reload, and we talked about that incessantly. Don't build anything, against Google. How are Microsoft going to create that moat? Because they're often late to the party. And this is moving a lot. The cadence is moving a lot faster, right?
I think Microsoft, in their playbook, it has always been the case where they adopt the latest capability, they buy it in like they did with OpenAI, and then they build their own stuff to backfill. So they've got their Phi model set of LLMs, which are open source and less powerful and so on, but a lot cheaper for them to run in their data centers. So they can borrow ideas from everyone else in the market and then offer something that looks like it, feels like it, may not be everything that GPT 5.2 might be able to do, for example, but it gets most users in those particular use cases most of the way there. I don't think, interestingly, Microsoft is not going to win because of the quality of their models. They're going to win because of the
reach.
Because of their reach and because of the way that they go to market. As a Microsoft customer, most businesses operate through a service provider. So they don't even receive a Microsoft bill. They receive a bill from Bob, who's my MSP.
Yeah.
And so the MSP is the person whose job it is to sell Microsoft. And so Microsoft always feels like the de facto option in the business person's mind, the one that isn't going to get them fired, et cetera, et cetera. So yeah, I think it's going to be a long way to go before Microsoft's dominance of the business market is going to be challenged in a major way outside of the kind of higher, more complex end of town in data centers and hyperscaler cloud and stuff like that is less relevant to the boots on the ground business people of the audience.
I've got one final hot tip for anybody using Copilot, and you've got your 15 to 20 in your organization using it, and there may be some laggards, we call them, not early adopters, who aren't actually using it enough. And no matter what you do, you can actually, through your MSP, reassign that to someone else who might want to actually use an AI tool at work within the auspices of their ecosystem. So calling up OneNote, calling up SharePoint, and also then building the agentic piece. Because when you've got a Copilot license, you can actually build a bit like Google Gems. You can build these pretty one-dimensional chatbots, let's call them, but basically they can hook into a bit of content if you've got a big Microsoft cloud server function at your office. So you can move them around. That's the hot tip. Go and talk to your CIO or your CTO and say, hey, I want a license.
How about, Lou, instances that you encountered where there might have been some in-house builds that didn't go as well? I mean, you've been around the game a long time, as have we both, and you often see, the person who has a little bit of capability, they already have the trust of the people internally. They say, yep, I'll volunteer, I'll do it. And then they get most of the way down the track, but they can't close out the project, or they can't realize the value that they wanted to or expected to. Have you been seeing a little bit of that around? Have you seen failed projects or internally done projects go sideways?
Yeah, and again, back to the Microsoft suite. Not trying to dish them too much on this this pod, but and look, we use Microsoft all the time, but it's the Power Automate, the Power BI that is trying to do what trying to assume the position of AI in the organization, and they've been whacked on the head. A lot of these clients with Power BI, Power Automate is going to change your life. It is incredibly difficult to build a dashboard that is working regularly, and Power Automate is quite difficult to use. So that's the starting point. Then dashboards, can we make the dashboard better? And what's happened is Copilot is pretty good for that, and also then all the custom interfaces that you can use to actually build. So that's one piece of our audience, generally logistics and shipping and those sort of clients. The second piece is around the dabblers again, in terms of, hey, I'd love to learn vibe coding. So you might show them how to do a vibe coding, and then one of the chief words of Macquarie last year was AI work slop or AI slop. And there's certainly AI slop in writing and the content with the M dashes and the Oxford English inserted and all that sort of stuff. But there was work slop generated and projects held up, I think, because of they don't have the background, as you reflected on. They don't have the years of experience and the rubber hitting the road in terms of security and knowing when to stop from an MVP. And they're trying to build, I suppose, lovable websites that are actually going to change the world, that don't actually understand security. They don't sort of try and get into it. So there's been a lot of cases towards the end of the year where vibe coding, like whether it's on Cursor, Replit, Lovable, have had to, and platforms that have been built have had to move across to React and be rebuilt from the ground up.
Yeah, there's I think there's going to be a day of reckoning in many ways for the web, and I mean, it's happening even in popular open source code bases like the Linux Foundation coming out recently and saying, look, we're not going to allow AI coding to enter the Linux kernel anymore. Like, that's a rule now. And it's for that exact reason. Like, you can get well-intentioned people trying to use these advanced and very smart and capable tools to try and do something good, and they inadvertently and in an unintended way make mistakes. And maybe somebody who is equally well-intentioned and lacking in capability reviews that work and says, yep, passes muster. And then all of a sudden you've got kind of code cancer,
code cancer.
That's in a similar way to concrete cancer in a building. You've got this kind of propagating poor quality of code in your system, and that goes not just for operating systems like Linux, but all kinds of technical systems. It's baking in technical debt and vulnerability and insecurities.
And I think that's a critical thing. I mean, if you look at Lovable, which is a platform I use every day, and it's great to build a front end website, just very simple landing pages. Great to do an MVP and actually spin something up really quickly. If you need something built to show someone and things like that, it's awesome. Like there's nothing better. But the number one button is called publish. There's a publish button on the top right. And in there's a security button, and it sort of flashes at you, because Lovable, being from Sweden, have obviously to raise money to a $6 or $7 billion valuation. They're doing about 300 million ARR now. They have to take security seriously, and they're integrating with Stripe. They've got automatic Stripe integration into APIs and things like that. So there's a lot of danger there and entry points if you don't get it right. So whenever we build something a little bit bigger than just a landing page, we build it in mind that it will last us 3 to 6 months. It won't be the security mecca that we're going to need. And we need to factor that into, if this thing's going to scale, this, platform that we've built, we're actually going to have to get the real guys in to actually build it out.
So, in your experience, Lou, what's the harsh truth in 20s at the beginning of 2026 that leaders need to hear, and what are the things, the inconvenient factors that need to be put on the table and really faced in order to overcome these intermediate challenges in the current state of AI?
I think there's a continuing theme of training and development and education and awareness across the whole organization. And I'm sort of saying to not only the boards and the senior leaders of these organizations, but also the people on the floor, right, literally on the floor, cleaning or doing different jobs. Everybody needs to be empowered by this. This is a vital technology, whether you're touching it now and using it and it's in, your daily life of writing things and emails. Look, it doesn't matter. You're going to need to know it. So there's this ongoing education thematic that we can't stress enough. So we're running the master classes and we're running, 3 training sessions a day for one client. And then we're, going to another client and running a couple of training sessions. We're even doing senior leader training for 2 hours where we'll sit with the CEO, we'll open up their Outlook and we'll build a prompt using Prompt Cowboy to basically say, every morning, clean this up for me. What are my blind spots? What am I missing? Things like that. So we're in that sort of phase of dabbling was in 2025, as I said. We're now into the rubber is hitting the road. The harsh truth, though, is I think don't pause. It's a bit like when a black swan event happens and people stop marketing. When a bushfire happens or there's a flood or COVID happened, I remember going, just double down and keep going and amplify the marketing because this is the time to get ahead of everybody in the world and ahead of your competitors. So I think the big truth that needs to be said is you've got to keep going. You're going to need a lot of stamina and resilience as a CEO and a board member to actually really get through the next 6 months because there's going to be projects like we just talked about that maybe don't produce the ROI yet, but we know that we can achieve that if we do them, in a more advanced fashion in the future. How about you, James? What's your take out and your conversations that you're having?
The harsh truth that I want to tell most leaders that I encounter and is that you're not as informed on AI as you think you are. And I think it's a feature of language models that everybody's using day to day. We feel like we have this superpower now. We have this knowledge and confidence at our fingertips. Like, for instance, I'm brought into a business and by one of the senior partners in the business, and the owner is there and talking with the owner, and he was like, "Oh yeah, I've tried out AI. I don't think it's going to be able to do my job over the next 10 years. I think we've got another 10 years left." And I said, "Oh, that's interesting. What makes you think that?" "Oh, well, I hadn't used it until about 3 months ago, and then I tried it out, and yeah, just can't do it." And there's an acronym that came to mind that we use a fair amount in the software engineering game. It's picnic, a problem in chair, not in computer. And the skill level of the operator is so critical to getting the best out of any sophisticated system. And that's not a criticism of this person's intelligence. They're a business owner. They've been in business for 30 years. It's absolutely not that. But not everybody is as good as everybody else at getting the best out of probabilistic systems as language models are. And so the upshot there and the harsh truth there is there will be people who challenge your understanding of this technology and will claim to be able to get better performance than you were able to, even though they're not a domain expert in your area. And I think that's always been true for technology to some extent, but it's no more like it's more true now than ever because of the advanced nature of AI systems. But it means that we're going to have to be that much more vigilant as business people to sort out the BS from the actual experts who know what they're doing.
Yeah. And it's probably another point about what did you think businesses assumed would be magic, but actually was useless, James? I know I saw a number of different, probably people or internal people over-promising, under-delivering, going, this is going to be magic, it's going to change the world. What did you see?
In contrast to something that you said earlier, which was like, this was a year of agents and like we've gotten a lot out of agents. I think agents were overused in a lot of circumstances.
A bit of overhyped too.
Yeah, there was an assumption that I could directly replace a person with an agent. And I think that was the wrong way to think about agents at the level of sophistication that agents are at. And I think we have reached a bit of a plateau on agent
Mm.
performance that is going to take a while and a lot of architecture and maturation in the business community to sort out. But yeah, that situation in customer service that I was talking about earlier, where we were able to get a lot of productivity back for that business just with a single little use case. They had been through a process with another AI consultancy, in which they tried to replace a customer service person with the AI agent instead of finding the particular use case and using a particular tool in an almost surgical way like we have.
Mm.
And they burned some relationships with their customers as a result. And we see that at the small scale, like in that business, all the way up to the very large scale to Commonwealth Bank, where
Yeah,
they
right.
sacked 50 people and they had to hire them all back because the
That's it.
complaints were so intense.
Yeah. Yeah, it's combining that harsh truth with the delusion of something's magic. And we've been through cycles already like this, haven't we? With Google early days with advertising, with cloud computing, and we've seen a lot of the sort of the history of this. But yeah, there was definitely some delusion, I think, about agents. I think agentic AI was meant to be rocking by the end of 2025.
Mm,
Certainly wasn't.
mm,
The only one that is getting close for me that is out of the box for the consumer or the business consumer, if you want to call it that, would be Manus, and being able to actually email your Manus bot. Mine's my name at Manus bot, and I can just email that and
mm,
actually get it to do tasks, get it to schedule things, get it to
mm.
actually unprompted start doing deep research. So yeah, we're on the cusp, but it's going to be a great year to watch that.
Well, maybe that's a good segue, Lou, into 2026. I think we've got a couple of minutes left, but
Crystal balling, I love
crystal
crystal
balling
balling.
for
Crystal
2026
balling.
predictions are possibly my least favorite thing in tech because you can,
We can be tested in 12 months on these. We can reflect back. I'm
that's
sure
what I.
Yenia will bring them up. Yenia is going to pull them up and go, here's your 4 top tips. And they're all wrong.
Well, let's give our first wrong prediction or our first hypothesis. Let's put it that way, Lou. What's your hypothesis for 2026 that you're interested to test?
Well, I think, I want to really make sure that waste doesn't happen. I want to have a year of don't waste, don't dabble, don't just spray it out there. I want to make sure by the end of 2026, everybody is using some form of agentic AI that's doing something for them. Maybe as you just said, James, a small piece of a process that they might follow, not replacing humans. We're augmenting. Remember, that's our critical point of difference. And the other thing is there's no waste. They're not wasting money. They're getting great bang for buck. They've managed to strip down from 10 GPTs to the 2, and maybe one is used for, they're booking their Tuscan holiday in Italy and the wines and the Michelin star, and that's ChatGPT. Awesome, knock yourself out. And the other one is Claude or Gemini or maybe, Copilot or something like that for your business world. And I think that we're starting to really zero in right now in January on those areas of waste, and people are sort of getting, CFOs are putting red lines through sort of things that are going to cost too much. So that's my hypothesis. I think we're going to have a cleanup year. We're not going to dabble as much. We're going to really the rubber's going to hit the road on the real things that are actually going to make a difference. And then people are going to be prepared to chuck out stuff that doesn't. How about you, mate? What's your sort of number one hypothesis for the year?
My number one hypothesis for the year is, and this kind of betrays my background and my work a little bit. As a business, Cadent is going to be focusing really, really closely on how to build systems that build systems. And this goes beyond
AI training AI. Yeah.
yeah, and not even to that extent. Like not necessarily AI training AI in that kind of recursive way, but imagine if we could build a technical system that manages business processes for you and takes away all of the things that, like that 80-20 rule your business, like the things that you spend 80% of your time on,
Right.
but only yield you 20% of your productivity. If we can identify that 80%, install systems that manage that, which will have AI integration within them, but also do that in a way which is primarily built and maintained by an overarching AI system. So it's a little bit meta. It's like a meta system around the
Yeah, right.
system.
So
But
like a semantic layer, sort of like it's got the body of knowledge, like across the whole thing. Yeah.
And imagine it has to be, because the strength of AI systems aren't where we want them to be yet. They can't just be thrown any problem devoid of context and be expected to perform really well. We have to craft the agents within that particular context and give them the right things at the right time in order to not have a massive AI tokens bill at the end of the month. Like our AWS bill over the course of the year just went and I was like, okay, how can we token optimize now?
Yes. Token optimize. There's a hot word. Token optimize. By the end of 2026, everybody's going to be token optimized. Especially with AWS though, that's a very good example of how things can blow out and what bang for buck did I get, and especially if you're doing what you're talking about, that's important.
And that's, as far as methodology is concerned, when you use AI systems as much as we do, you come to learn that just giving more information to an LLM session doesn't necessarily get you more value because its attention is split. It doesn't know exactly what's the most important point to you. So it tries to give you a kind of a mushy answer to see if it can satisfy you. So if we can refine that down.
Intern.
Yeah, exactly. If we can refine that down to something that is on task, limited context, we know what good looks like, here are some examples. We don't have to rely on a zero-shot answer. We can give the system an opportunity to get it right more of the time. And that's my hypothesis for the year. I think there's going to be a lot more systems that are building systems, just like Anthropic is with Claude.
Yeah.
They claim that now 90% of their product code is written by Opus 4.5, their best model. And in our testing, we believe it.
Yeah, agree. And some of the agents we're building, which are we call them super agents, because these are now trained on GCP, Google infrastructure. We're using BigQuery and these data lakes of amazing data, 20 years of ingested data from one client, for example. And we're now building on top with Copilot Studio, funnily enough, but actually on an Anthropic model, on the Claude models. And that Opus model, unbelievable. Like the transformation from a OpenAI API and ChatGPT, let's call it, but basically the move across has been remarkable. The speed, the efficacy, the reliability, the context, it just gets it, right?
There's a Reagan, I don't quote Reagan very often, but when I do, it's this one. It's trust but verified. And that's where we're going to go this year. I think we're getting a lot more serious about, okay, what does good look like in the context of AI? How can we measure its performance successfully so that we can calculate ROI, so that we can make sure we're getting value for money? And I think we're nearly there. As a business culture, we're getting really close.
It's a good segue as well to wrap this up, isn't it, James? And maybe we do 4 key takeaways to each, for the listeners of what we think. And, I might go first. AI works, but not where people think. I think, we've explained today that AI is working, stick with it, but it might be in a different part of your business. It might not be in the shiny lights of someone trying to dazzle you with an MVP.
Beware the blind spot.
Beware the blind spot. That's a good frame. The second one for me, most businesses wasted money. Yeah, there's wasting again because they chased a bit of the hype cycle. We all know about the hype cycle. And I think that just be careful, make sure there's rubber hitting the road, make sure your people are being trained up. So you've got this circular economy going in your own organization because, I think stamina and holding firm with ROI case studies is going to be the winner by the end of the year. How about you, mate?
Look, I think if there's one thing that I want people to take away from this session together is that the winners in AI are going to be focused on their workflows, not on, the magic of an agent that takes away the human effort, all of the human effort associated with a task. Our intent is critical. Quality of process is arguably more critical because now we can do things faster. And in some cases, better. So if we're going to be doing a bad process really quickly, that's just going to give us a lot more bad outputs, isn't it?
Totally.
I think the other thing is that along those lines, and as a governance person, I tend to get lumped into that boring box with kind of some of the things that I talk about that are less exciting. But I think 2026 is going to be the year of boring AI rather than the sexy, flashy AI that we've come to expect. There's going to be really strong rationalization. We're going to claw our way out of the chasm of disillusion, and we're going to come back with some actually pragmatic ideas where AI should fit within an organization. So that's the stuff that gets me out of bed.
That's awesome. Yeah, mate. Look, and we're going to have to wrap. But so next episode, we actually talked before the pod, didn't we? Are we going to do the leaderboards? Are we going to do the tiers? Are we going to do that next episode? Because I think that's pretty hot.
I think that's a really fun idea. We want to maybe do a bit of a tier list of the current leading AI studios and assess some models.
Who's winning and who's struggling and what's happening
falling behind and why. I think it'll be really good.
Apple with all their sort of fun and games and not actually doing anything. They were just a hardware company. Good on them. But now they've joined with Gemini and Google and paying all that money. So
there's a lot of strategic dynamics happening, and it's going to be a big year for the real business of AI as everybody starts to rationalize. So I think now's the time, Lou. Sounds like fun.
That is awesome. But look, thanks to all the listeners. Thanks to everybody that has reached out, and we're going to keep doing this, even if you're not listening, aren't we, James? We're just going to keep blindly doing this. And we were just going to say thanks to promptcowboy.ai. Today's episode was proudly supported by promptcowboy.ai, who help businesses harness AI without the guesswork. Whether you're building smarter systems, automating processes, or just want an AI that actually works, check out Prompt Cowboy because they have you covered. They power this show, and right on over to their site and you'll get lassoed.
All right. Thanks, everyone. This is Zero Shot, your anti-hype AI business podcast with Llew Jury and James Gauci. We'll see you in the next episode. Come and join us on our social channels and keep up to date with what we're up to. We're usually pests on LinkedIn, as you can imagine. So come and visit us there and say hi. In the meantime, have a great day.
Thanks, James. Cheers.